All right, welcome everybody to another edition of the Hotfix. Glad to have you all here. This is the start of a few hotfixes, so we're going to be having a show basically every Sunday. This is for SpeedRunsLive Season 2, so happy to have you guys here. It's been a while. We've been kind of planning this for a bit, but it's finally starting. So I'm Darkman78. With me here is Boney, main organizer of Seasons 2. So Boney, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Glad to have you here. So this is the first week, so I think we're going to take a few minutes to kind of explain what season 2 is. So Bonnie, if you kind of want to, explain it to the world, what they're going to be watching over the next few weeks.
Sure, sounds good. So we are kicking off season 2 right now, and this is going to be a few month-long event. Essentially, we're going to have a new game every week. We're going to start season off. Last week, we actually started it off by revealing the first game, which is Super Mario Brothers, and every player had about a week to prepare, whether they already knew the game or whether they were learning it for the first time. They just had to study the route and get as good as they possibly could in about a week-long span. At the end of that span, which is where we are now, they get to put all their skills to the test. They get to join a big race and will ultimately get points based on how they finished. And we're going to continue that pattern over the course of 9 weeks. Right at the end of this stream, we'll be revealing the next game. Players will have a week to practice that, and so on. And once we get to the end of the 9th week, the top 16 will go on to a final bracket, which we'll detail as we get closer to that. But that's more or less the structure.
Awesome. We have, of course, this is the big race, the Sunday race. It's going to be starting at about 2 p.m. Eastern time, which is going to be about 27 minutes, give or take. Looking forward to that. We also had a race on Saturday. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct. Pretty successful race, I have to say. We had a good variety of skill level. I think we had just under 30 players. And we had some of our big names in it. We had Cosmic, we had LK, among some other experienced runners. We had Rupert as well, who we'll be hearing from quite soon. And we had some new players. I think there were 2 people in the race who were playing the game either for the first time or for the first time in at least 10 years. So it was cool. We had a good variety. And I guess on that note, if you're familiar with doing races on SRL, feel free to hop in the race right now. You got about 25 minutes before it starts. As long as you can set up your stream on time, feel free to join, even if you've never played the game before. Again, all skill levels are welcome. So
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of have on screen like kind of what happened in the first race. Of course, we're going to be combining the results of today's race and yesterday's race, so it's not quite telling you the clear picture, but it gives you an idea of what to expect in this race coming up.
yeah.
And yeah, so like you mentioned, it's pretty much open to anybody to race. So in order to enter season 2, you don't need to do anything, right? Just simply just showing up and playing the game each week.
Yep, yeah, that's basically it. As long as you can run the game in some way or another, whether it's on hardware or on your computer or whatever, that's all you need. You can just join. Yeah, that's it. I'm trying to think of other things you need, but there really isn't anything else.
Awesome.
I
Well,
guess a computer to join the race. That's all I got.
that does help. But hey, if you're chatting, if you're watching the stream, I think you have a computer, so you can probably do that.
Yeah,
Um,
probably.
so we do have, of course, if you do want to get involved in entering the races yourself, it's still not too late, even if you end up missing week 1 race. We do subtract from the 2 worst races that you do over the course of a 9-week season. So hey, you could just take a pass in this week and still enter in 7 out of
Yep.
the next 8 races. So you'll be good. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a Discord button on speedrunslive.com. There's also some information we'll be putting in chat. If you do !season 2, they'll give you some more information, a web page that you can read, and also keep up to date on the standings, which I'll link for you right now.
I guess while we get set up too, we can talk about our prize support. We will have a lot of prize support for the top 4 at the end of the whole event, but just for now, because it's relevant, the winner of every single weekly race, or I guess combination of races, will get a $20 Steam gift card. So the time to beat right now is that top time you see in the leaderboards, which I believe was just under 20 minutes. And if that time holds up, the winner of that race, which I believe was LK, will get 20 bucks in Steam credit. But anyone who joins today's race could feasibly beat that time. So that's the time to beat. It's easy money.
There you go. It's a solid time. I mean, certainly respectable, but definitely beatable. And we have some pretty good competitors here, so we'll see if one of them can beat it. Yeah, so without further ado, let's talk more about week one's game, which is, of course, Super Mario Brothers. Maybe a couple people in chat are familiar with the game. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a kind of a popular game. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our commentator for the week. So every week we will have a game-specific commentator. Oh, excuse me. He is
Fled. He'll be back.
He was here and then all of a sudden he disappeared. He's just preparing his commentary. Don't mind him. But our game-specific commentator. So every week we'll have a game-specific commentator. Some weeks it'll be somebody who's incredibly knowledgeable. Other weeks, they'll be fairly knowledgeable because it'll definitely be games that aren't as popular as Super Mario Brothers. But yeah, we'll just take a minute. He had an emergency, so we're just gonna let him handle that for a few minutes. But we'll just talk about some general things about the game, what to expect. So this is Super Mario Brothers 1. Beat the game warpless. So of course everybody knows that there are warps in this game. You know, you take an ice pipe, take you to a secret level, but you cannot do that here. So you have to beat every single level in the game, 1-1 through 8-4. And yeah, it seems like a fairly simple category, very easy to just kind of get through and say, oh yeah, beat the game warpless. I've done this as a kid, right? Okay, let's be real. Chances are you probably beat the game with warps. It's okay, you can admit it. I know I did. But beating the game warpless is kind of a new animal. So, Bodhi, I mean, you definitely watched some of the racers on Saturday. What do you think we should be expecting in general, difficulty level?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I noticed most of the top runners probably did a little worse than at least they expected, and that's mainly because deaths in this game are just really punishing. I think even a new player who put a lot of time into learning the game this week could end up getting pretty close as long as they play a bit safely, because obviously slowing down a little bit is going to cost you some time, but even if you slow down several times, it's still probably going to be faster than dying at almost any point in the level. So if the top runners take a couple deaths, the new people could compete. It's very important to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is you're learning this game in 1 week. It's not going to go perfect. No matter how much you practice, you're going to make mistakes. So the key, I think, looking out for some of the racers, especially the ones who've only taken a week to learn the game, is how quickly do they adapt to what happens in front of them? Because more than likely, they're going to end up dying in places they never died before to practice. So it just becomes a question of how do I adapt to this situation?
Yep, and I think adaptation will really come into play for any game we use. There's just a lot of things to keep in mind regarding, okay, I just took damage, so I need to play safely now, or I took a death, so maybe I need to make up for it and play even faster, or I need to be careful so I don't do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of some of the more specific things we do have, of course, of course, you have power-ups in this game. You have Small Mario, Big Mario, and Fire Flower Mario, which is going to come in play. I'll be curious to see what kind of strats people decide to do. I don't know, Buddy, what did you see when you were watching the Saturday race? Did you see people kind of vary in their strats?
Yeah, it was all over the place. Again, the better people played faster, but they took deaths, so they lost some time to it. And the slower people, they obviously took longer to beat the game, but they may have died less, especially if they're familiar with the game. So you see all the above. Of course, the newer players who didn't even practice will do both. They'll die and play slowly, but hey, they get through the game, so that's what counts.
Exactly. All right. Well, without further ado, the man of the hour is here. So, as we were
Hey,
mentioning, we have a game-specific commentator each week, and joining us is Rupert83, so a very experienced Super Mario Brothers Warpless player. So, Rupert, welcome.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me, and good afternoon.
hey.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So, hopefully, everything is squared away on your end. You're good to go.
Yeah,
Um,
hopefully so.
okay. So yeah, so we were kind of talking a little bit about Super Mario Brothers Warpless and kind of the overview, what to expect. So from an experience, you've of course played this game for a very long time. You're very familiar with it. What should we expect, especially from like somebody who has maybe put like some of our runners have of course only been playing this game for a week. What should we expect out of this race? I think.
You'll probably see quite a few variances in some of the strategies. You will probably see a lot of people go for quite a few power-ups and fire strats and so forth. There are some players that learn small only strats when they first start out, which is not necessarily a bad idea, as if you learn how to be pretty efficient with the small strats, you can know what to do when the situation comes up in which you lose your power-ups and you're not kind of just stuck there being like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't have my power up. So, but yeah, there's quite a few variances and strats for new players and what they play as long as their comfort level and so forth. So, you may see some people say like in 1-2, some people may take the top route. They'll break the bricks and run along the top. And then some may try to take the riskier bottom route. So it's, for newer players, it's kind of hard to know what to expect from what strats that they'll use, as opposed to the more seasoned veterans of this game. Typically, it's fairly predictable on what kind of strats that they would use in a race situation.
Gotcha. So yeah, so we kind of talked about like the kind of the approach. Boney, I know you had a question about like fireflies.
Yeah, so I'm curious as to, this is really less of a question, but more of a topic. Just how people studied where item locations are, because I know there are a couple tutorials, one that Rupert made, and I think one that Cosmic made as well, and some of our new runners looked into those. But I'm curious as to how many items were detailed in those tutorials, because there are a lot of like hidden item locations, and I think it'll be very important for new players to know where those are, because they're just bound to be hit by more enemies than the experienced runners will be. So I think it'll be interesting to see how players studied where those locations are. Maybe if some of them even went to like game FAQs just to figure out where every single item in the game is, or whether they just familiarized themselves with the important ones. So
Yeah, so as far as with the power-ups, I haven't really watched Cosmic's tutorial that much, so I'm not really familiar with how many power-ups he went through. I do know that I went through some on mine, the tutorial that I made. I can't remember how many power-ups I showed. I probably covered or probably covered quite a few of the most common ones to pick up. There's some that I guess subjectively you may or may not want to go for. Like some of them are either take a long time to get or pretty difficult to pick up. So one of the instances of the ones that I feel that's pretty risky to pick up is the power up block at the beginning of 6-4. You have all those fire bars spinning around, and you don't really have a huge window to pick up the power up and then try to make it through there without taking a hit. So that's kind of one of those situations of where you really have to think about, is it really worth it to pick up the power up, as it, in my opinion, it actually makes going through the level with a power up a little more difficult, just because of since you have a larger hitbox, it's a little more difficult to avoid the fire bars.
okay, that's good to know. And I think I wonder how life management will come into play as well, because I think the newer players may be scared of game overing, especially in World 7 or World 8. So wonder if people know where the one-up locations are, and I wonder if we'll see a one-up glitch to maximize their lives. That's what I really want to see. It's not very fast, but I want to see it.
It's possible that you could see a few one-up glitches. There's the strat that you can use on 3-1 on the stairs. I haven't seen people do that much in a while, but there's a possibility you could see a few players try to pick up a few extra lives by doing that trick. Yeah, it does waste some time, but at the same time, if you're pretty new to the category and you think you're going to need several lives and so forth, it's not necessarily a bad strat when you first get started with the game. I guess a little bit more on as far as the one-up blocks. there's a few conditions, as some people may notice, that sometimes in the I guess I'll call it X-1 level. So like a lot of people know where the 1-up is in 4-1 above the 4 coin blocks and pretty much the middle of the level. And sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not there. So a pretty good piece of information to know of why it sometimes appears and sometimes it doesn't is based on 3 conditions. And one of the conditions for the mushroom, or I'm sorry, the 1-up block to appear is in the previous X-3 level. So let's say we're talking about the 4-1-1-up. You have to collect all the coins in 3-3 for that to appear. So that's one of the conditions. The other 2 conditions, it will appear if you warp to that world, and it will also appear if you game over and restart on that world. And that's pretty much the same scenario for all of the X-1 levels throughout the game that have the 1-up blocks.
Alrighty, well, so we have some interesting and detailed commentary by Rupert. We appreciate it. We also have a few videos to show off, so we're kind of going to show a couple of tricks and things to look out for while you're watching the racers. So we are going to play our first video, which is the small fire Mario setup. So do you kind of want to explain what's going on here? Because this one is kind of an interesting glitch that actually works in the racers' favors.
So yeah, I'll explain the glitch a little bit. I can't see this real time, so I'll just try to explain it off the top of my head. So, so the small fire Mario glitch, what you're essentially doing here, as far as the setup goes, is you need to have at least some form of a power-up state. So you either need to be Big Mario or you need to be Fire Mario. It's best if you do it as Big Mario, but essentially what you do is you get to the end of the level and you stand up against the wall and you jump straight up and move to the right just a little bit. And essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to hit Bowser and the axe at the same time. So basically what happens is when you do that, if you do it successfully, is you will get hit, but you'll hit the axe at the same time. So that kind of screws up the values in the game for what your power-up state is and what your size is. So what will happen is you look when you finish the level and you start the next level, you will look like you're actually Big Mario, but as far as your power-up state, it will consider you a small Mario. So that like in that Big Mario state, if you take a hit, you'll actually die there. So basically what players will do is they will hit the first power-up block, they'll pick up a mushroom, and then they'll turn into what looks like small Mario, but in that state, the game considers you, as far as your power-up level, as Big Mario, so you can actually still take a hit there, even though you look like you're small, and you just go back to big. So if you pick up the second power-up, which would be the Fire Flower, you will still be in your small state, but you'll have Fire Flower abilities. So the advantage to that is it makes some of the levels quite a bit easier, since you don't have to do duck jumps, and you can just maneuver through some of the levels a little bit easier through narrow spaces. Like, for instance, 2-2, it's a lot easier to swim around the fish when you don't have the large hitbox of Big Mario. If you happen to die after you've pulled off that glitch, you will actually just return to normal, and everything will be back the way it was before you pulled off the glitch.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, this is kind of a neat trick. Does it necessarily save time, or just kind of more beneficial just from like a safety standpoint?
It overall, if you're talking about a high level runners, doing that glitch will actually waste a little bit of time because of the setup of touching Bowser and the axe at the same time, and you're also picking up a third power up, since you have to waste one to pull off the glitch. Some players, I know Supersonic's one of them. Cosmic will do it sometimes too, but it's pretty convenient for a race situation. It makes quite a few things easier, even though it does waste a little time to pick it up. But it is a strat that several players actually like to execute and do races that way.
Okay. So yeah, so definitely could see one of the the stronger racers use it. We'll look forward to that. So our next trick we're gonna, or not trick, or more like thing to watch out for is the kind of the flagpole. So there's differences in times in terms of where you grab the flagpole. So Rup, if you want to explain that while we show the video.
Okay. So the video that you're watching, so I made that, and basically I did it both videos starting at the same frame, like when you come up out of the pipe in 1-1. And the reason I made that is it's a pretty common question from viewers and new runners and so forth, is that why do people grab the top of the flagpole? Isn't it quicker to grab the bottom of the flagpole? And the answer for that is the top of the flagpole, since you're up higher on it, when Mario lets go and jumps off the flagpole, he will actually accelerate a little bit faster because Mario accelerates faster going backwards than he does forwards. Also, if you want to look at it from the standpoint of he will skip that block that's under the flagpole, the little brown block. So essentially that makes him get to the castle just a little bit faster. Anywhere else on the flagpole is going to get you at the castle at the same time because he's going to touch the block and not accelerate as quickly to the castle. I do want to point out that this does not take into consideration the flagpole glitch as kind of its own thing, but in the interest of running Warpless and Warpless races, that's not really something that you see very commonly in a Warpless race. So I didn't decide to really go into that, as it's not really that relevant for Warpless.
All right, absolutely. All right, so that's of course something to keep in mind. You know, so definitely grabbing the top of the flagpole will save a few frames, but it's not something that is going to, you know, severely hamper your chances of doing well if you don't grab the top. Essentially,
now it's only going to save you. It can save you 0.35 seconds roughly. That doesn't. As far as saving you the time, it's not going to work on every single level, but it's one of those situations of if you're not slowing down or anything like that to try to grab the top of the flagpole, then go ahead and go for it. But don't waste any time trying to do that because you'll negate any time that you save by having to slow down to grab the top of the flagpole.
okay. And then our final video, so we're going to show the difference between Fire Mario and Small Mario in the castle stages. So this is kind of going to talk about what Rupert is mentioning in terms of like duck jumping. So if you want to kind of talk about that, Rupert.
Okay, so the difference between Fire Mario and Small Mario, or I guess also Big Mario, is has quite a few times of why is Fire faster and why don't they just jump over Bowser and hit the axe and so forth. So what this video shows is the timing difference of Fire strats versus the small strats. And pretty much the big difference here is when you fire kill Bowser and then you touch the axe, there's no collapsing bridge animation and Bowser falling into the lava. Like when you do that with Small or just regular Big Mario, you have to wait on that animation. And as you can see in the video, that's pretty much what makes what ultimately makes Fire definitely faster in Warpless runs. It's not a huge time save, but it can save you a couple of seconds if you're pretty quick at doing a fire kill on Bowser.
All right. Well, yeah. So those are kind of some of the tricks to look out for while you are watching the game. Not necessarily glitches, except for of course the small Fire Mario glitch, but just things you should be looking out for. We appreciate Rupert making the time to make those videos, so that way you guys are better informed. So without further ado, we're going to kind of finish off our little pre-show here. We're going to kind of introduce who our 4 players are very quickly. So, Boney, who do we got on? Who's going to be on the stream?
All right, so yep, we'll be showing 4 players, and we got a mix of new players and very experienced players. Supersonic 71087, we'll just call him Supersonic. He's kind of our headliner, I would say. He is 6th on the Warpless leaderboards. He actually joined yesterday's race, so this race won't count towards his standings or his points, but he's kind of a good frame of reference to see how everyone else stacks up. The Cole is also in this race, who is 16th on the leaderboards with another very good time, a pretty low 20, I believe. And the fastest who filled out our little time submission form, so thanks for filling that out. You know, we do have a submission form, so if anyone wants to be featured, they just need to submit their time, and we'll kind of pick them from that. So good thing to keep in mind for future weeks. All right, those are our two experienced runners. Our new runners are Brother Main and Kushis, who are both regulars at the Ultimate Decathlon event, which is kind of similar to this. So we recommend checking that out as well. But yep, they're both new to this game and they have pretty good times. Before I reveal what they are, I want Rupert to guess what the best new time is from a brand new runner.
23:30.
Oh, they're a bit better than that. So
Bit better?
Brother Main actually has a 21:30, and he just started this
very
game a
nice.
week ago. So yeah, that's actually insane. That's like
That's
a minute.
that's pretty impressive. That sounds like quite a bit of work's been put into it.
Yeah. So he did great. He's the best or the fastest new player, and Kushis is the second fastest with a 22:53. So also a very good time, but definitely a bit of a gap there. Either way, we expect both of them to do quite well overall. So people to look out for. And we also
Absolutely.
have a few dozen other people in this race who can all do quite well. So
Yep. So we will, of course, be showing all four of the people we just talked about. We will show their runs in entirety, and as soon as we get an opportunity, we will also be showing additional runners who are kind of like finishing up the race. So you get to see, kind of some of the better players, and maybe some of the not so better players, but it's okay because even if you don't do so well in the first race, you got 8 more races to go. So anything can happen. So don't give up, even if you get a fairly not great time. So without further ado, that wraps up our pre-show. We're going to go back to Countdown for a few minutes as we finish setting up this race. So once we go back, we'll be ready to go. So we're just going to play a quick ad because nothing is going on right now. So stick around. Thanks for watching the pre-show, and we will be back very shortly with Week 1. Super Mario Brothers beat the game Warpless, our Week 1 Season 2 race. All right, everybody, we're back, and the race is just about ready to go. I'm just going to make sure everybody is ready to go, and then we'll just kick things off.
I'm excited. How many people do we have? I don't even know. Let's see. We have quite a few in this race, so they all they all came flying in at the last second. So I'm excited for how big this thing got. Yep, 35 people. That's pretty good. We had like 27 or 28 yesterday, I think. So quite a good start to season 2, I would have to say. And hopefully next week we'll have even more. Hopefully some of these people will stick around. Hopefully new people will come in who like what we're trying to do here, watching it for the first time on the GDQ stream. And on that note, we are starting right now. All right. So, what are we expecting here? Who's going to win this race?
Let's see. Who could be the sleeper? I don't know.
Who could
Supersonic's
be?
a pretty strong candidate to be the victor. We'll see.
We have quite a lot of old runners in this race, I believe, and of course new runners as well. I see Lack Attack is in here. All right, so we are done with 1-1. Only 31 stages to go, right?
Right. Yeah. Not too much going on in the beginning. 1-1, 1-2, yeah, 1-3, even 1-4. They're pretty standard. You're gonna see, of course, kind of the difference in strats. Whereas, like for instance, on the Cole stream, he already has Fire Flower versus Supersonic, who just has Big. Who's gonna get Fire Flower later? I assume, or he might be just going for Big only, or he might be doing the Small Fire strat, like Roop was mentioning earlier. We have both Brother Main and Kushus going for Small Mario so far, so just kind of things to keep in mind so far as we kind of go through all one.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised our new runners are staying small, actually, and it seems like they'd want to play safer, but hey, if they're confident, then it works out.
I guess so. It's like we were talking about earlier. When you end up being big, you have to also do like different jumps at certain parts. Like especially in like the castle stages, you have to do like little bump jumps rather than some like just normal jumps that you would do otherwise. So it could just be a comfort level. Like they feel more confident doing those like regular jumps rather than having to do like different types of jumps when they're big.
And there's that high flagpole that we talked about. Good to keep in mind. I hope we don't see any low flagpole grabs in the stream. I'll be sad. They wouldn't have learned anything.
It looks like Supersonic's going for the small fire glitch.
Okay.
And he gets it.
Awesome. Nice. I'm glad you made that video, Roop, because now it makes sense.
Yeah, see, we already covered 2 over 3 topics, right?
So what do you think, Roop, about like some of our newer runners who've only been playing this game for a week, doing Small Mario so far? Would you think to do that, or would you think it'd be a little bit safer for them to maybe do like Big or Fire?
I mean, using the power-ups is definitely safer. You can get into the situation of where if you keep losing a ton of power-ups, it really wastes a lot of time to have to keep constantly picking them back up. But it's basically kind of what they're comfortable with. Some people are pretty comfortable running small strats. I guess I'm not super surprised if a lot of people use my tutorial because it only covered small strats. So that could be part of the reason why you're seeing several of the players running small only.
Yeah, I think Cosmic's tutorial wasn't provided to players until about halfway through the week because people just didn't know it existed. So I know our 2 new featured players, Brother Main and Crucius, jumped on this like right away. So they probably just stuck with her tutorial the whole time. But hey, whatever works. As long as they don't die a lot, then I think Small Mario might be the way to go.
Now, one thing I was curious about, like, is swimming at like the top of the water, is that like any faster, or it doesn't really matter?
No, it's all the same speed. So there's not really any advantage of staying near the top. It's just basically where the cheeps are. Just as long as you manage to get around those, that's what really matters on this stage.
What would you think, Roop, is like when things really start to become like problematic, especially for like a newer runner to this game? Obviously, like World 1 and World 2, it's not too much going on, but what would you say is like the first problem area?
I feel like the problems really start at the earliest for a lot of runners. Maybe 4-4 Bowser. World 5 on is where I see a lot of the problems arise with players dying multiple times and having some difficulty making it through some of the levels. A strategy that's pretty common and is usually a good idea is if you make it through the end of the world with 1 life, you can just take an intentional death on the first level of the next world and just get a life refill. That's a pretty common strat for a lot of racers, as it's not always the best idea to try to go through an entire world with 1 life, especially if you're pretty inexperienced with the game and you're not confident in your abilities to make it through the end. As that 15 seconds that it's going to cost you to refill your lives is sometimes worth it over potentially risking 2, 3, maybe even 4 minutes and dying toward the end of the world.
All right, and a couple of viewers are a little bit, joined a little bit late, not really understanding how why Supersonic is a small Fire Mario. So if you don't mind, could you explain one more time how this works and what
Sure.
is it exactly?
Okay, so Small Fire Mario is a glitch that you can execute at the end of any of the castle levels in the game. So basically what you need to do to actually execute this glitch is you need to be at least Big Mario and make it to the end of 8-4, and once you get to where the axe is, stand up against the wall right next to where the axe is, and when Bowser comes back towards you, jump straight up in the air, and then while you're in midair, move forward just a little bit, and essentially what you're trying to do is touch Bowser and the axe at the same time. So what this does is it actually kind of screws up the values in the game of your power-up level and what size you are. So when you start the next level, you'll actually look like you're Big Mario, but then but when you actually collect a mushroom, you'll turn into Small Mario, and then pick up a Fire Flower and you'll turn into Small Fire Mario. So basically, you have the advantages of having the smaller hitbox of Small Mario, so you don't have to duck under as many platforms and can swim around the water levels more easily. But you also still have fire abilities as well. So it is a trick that does waste a little bit of time, but for some runners such as Supersonic, who is really comfortable running that strategy, it's something that can really pay off if you're pretty good at pulling off the trick and keeping your power-ups.
We've got a really close race between, I guess, both sets of players. The experienced players are right next to each other, and our 2 newer players are pretty neck and neck as well. I'm not sure if Supersonic is leading the race right now, but he's got to be pretty close. He hasn't really made any mistakes.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing, Supersonic's just a little bit ahead. He's about, I don't know if he's half a level ahead, but he is in the lead currently. But for the upper tier players, through the first 4 worlds, a lot of the time you don't really see a lot of variance in their strats, and someone getting a big lead and so forth. Starting on World 5 is where things start to get tricky, and I guess the game kind of amps up the difficulty. So that's where you will more typically see some separation is in the later 4 worlds of the game.
Gotcha. Yeah, I noticed a common discussion point in our Discord was that World 5, 7, and 8 were all quite difficult. So that sounds right, whether it's for experienced or new players. Yeah, it's gonna get pretty intense now, I think. Alright, I noticed that Kushis took a hit last stage, I think, but he has yet to die, at least not recently.
That's interesting, because I thought they were both Brother Main and Kushas were doing Small Mario. Maybe he took a safety?
Yeah, I think so. I noticed, I don't know. Maybe I was imagining it. I noticed the sprite went black for like a second, so I think that's what happens when you get hit in the cave, but maybe I'm wrong.
Alright, so 4-4 onto for the experienced runners, our first potential problem level. So I guess, like, there's specific points in the later castle stages where you have to go into the areas in a certain order. I guess it's like a puzzle, so to speak.
Yeah, so there's I guess technically 3 maze castles. It's 4-4, 7-4, and 8-4. So 4-4 is the first one. That one is pretty straightforward. You just when you start the level, you go up at the top, and then once you get halfway through the stage, then you just kind of go down to the bottom and go that way. There's a different pattern for 7-4, which that pattern is bottom, middle, top, and then it's top, middle, top to get through 7-4. An easy way to remember to get through 8-4, if you're not doing any of the wrong warps and stuff like that, is to take the first pipe after each lava pit. Will always take you to the next section of the castle. So that's kind of the way that I used to remember how to make it through the 8-4 castle.
It's actually much simpler than I really realized. I never really thought about it. Good point. I think Supersonic has maybe slightly extended his lead. He's still doing very well. It's only like 7 seconds behind his PB, I believe.
So watching some of our other competitors in the background, looks like we have Kaku, did he win the tournament earlier today? I know they finished off the Warpless tournament.
No, he lost to London B, but he put up some solid race times today.
Okay, so our second place finisher then.
Yeah,
That's still pretty good.
Kaku was the winner of the winners bracket. So.
Okay. So yeah, so Kaku is in the background. So he's in 5-4 as well, just like a Supersonic and Cole. Looks like Lack is in 5-3. I'm trying to think if there's. I don't think there's anybody else who we should be expecting to be around the front runner, so to speak.
Who's just used the Star Strat in 5-1. That's something a lot of new players will actually do, is pick up that quick star there and finish out the level. That's not a that's a strat, like I said, like a lot of newer players use. It isn't a huge time difference one way or the other. It's more of a comfort level thing.
I almost feel like the star would be more important than items in certain levels, at least towards the end of the game. It's a good safety through like half the stage, so I can see why people would want to get it.
Yeah, there's a few of those in the game. It's a little tricky to get, but some people like to get the one in 6-2 as well to finish out that stage. But 6-2 is a difficult level if you're small Mario.
Alright, I noticed Brother Main took a death to the Hammer Brothers in 5-2, I think. Kushis also got hit in about the same section, but they're still doing quite well. They're actually not too far behind our very highest level runners, so I think they're doing quite well here. Supersonic's still killing it.
We did have a question in chat, if maybe you can help us out, Roop. So
Okay.
from Uber Grey Knight, yes, when Mario fires a fireball in Small Fire Mario, does his Big Mario sprite hitbox count, or is it just the small?
It does not, actually. It will show the Big Mario hitbox, but it actually doesn't count. And I believe, if I remember correctly, there's just no sprite in the game for that animation, so it just uses the big one. But yeah, you can shoot fireballs, but it will still consider you having the small hitbox.
I like how the Small Fire Mario over there kind of like glitches out the screen in a little bit there.
Oh, on 6-4.
Yeah.
Actually, the thing with that is there's so many sprites in the screen with the fireball and all the hammers and Bowser and Mario that when you start shooting the fireballs, it starts lagging the game. So that's not a byproduct of the Small Fire Mario. That's just a product of just shooting fireballs with so many sprites on the screen.
Okay. So now we're into kind of the meat of the run. World 7 for our experienced runners. Could definitely, I guess, make or break the run for both of them, right?
Yeah. Oh, and let's see. Kusa's got controlled by the fireball there, and he has a game over.
5-1. Yeah, game overs are quite punishing, as we mentioned earlier. Gotta be very careful with your life management. He was probably pretty confident too, because I think he had 2 lives going into World 5, but it all happens so fast. You never know.
It does not take long in this game to run out of lives.
Ooh, Brother Maiden running into the Piranha there. He's down to 1 life on 6-2, so it's gonna be rough. Let's see if he can finish up World 6 without game overing.
Blooper giving Nicole a hard time. there.
Yeah. Yeah, that blooper was not willing to get out of the way. That's pretty frustrating when that actually happens too. Sometimes you'll just get a bad pattern. You either have to shoot it out of the way or wait. 7-3 can be a pretty tough level too, but since you have the addition of the Koopas over 2-3, some of the patterns they can give you can be really nasty. Having to do duck jumps and so forth, and a few of those are getting a little close to the call.
Brother Main just took a game over there in 6-3, I think. It's tough. I think they'll still do pretty well overall, but yeah, game overs are punishing. Gotta be careful. Supersonic's almost in World 8 already. Still hasn't died.
Now, if Supersonic does happen to lose his power-up, do you think he'll attempt to get Small Fire again, or it's just really not worth it at this point?
He can't. Oh, let's see.
Well, now he's an 8. I guess he can't do it.
Well, he can pick up the power-ups again and get his get the state back. He can't pull off the glitch again though. So like if he dies, he'll just go back to normal Mario and that's it. But if he did lose it here, he could pick up another mushroom and the fire flower, and he would be a small fire Mario again.
Okay. Would you expect him to do it again, or would you think he would just keep going on?
I would anticipate that he would at least pick up the mushroom, because it's kind of awkward having the big hitbox of Big Mario. But in this case, he would actually have the state of Small Mario. So if he takes one hit as Big Mario, or what looks like Big Mario, he would actually die. So it's super awkward to be in that situation in which you know you can't take a hit, but you have this much larger hitbox.
Still a really close race between the Cole and Supersonic over here.
Yeah, both players are putting together a pretty solid run.
Yeah, they have their splits that we can see, and you know, both of them are like Supersonic's only like plus 12 seconds, and Cole's plus 22. So they're really close to their PBs for a really difficult category.
Yeah, that's pretty good. There's a lot of pressure in this race too, because there are like 35 people in it, so very impressed with how they're playing.
Yeah, that always factors into these races as well, as far as the nervousness and pressure.
Only one more.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure in these races, and a lot of and sometimes people will make mistakes that they normally wouldn't, but that's just the nature of doing races.
Supersonic did his race yesterday, though, so I guess that's important to keep in mind. There's no pressure in terms of acquiring points, so
Yep. So
maybe
this won't count towards the standings, but you know, it's kind of for glory at this point. That's cool. See if you can finish up strong here.
Cole on sub 20 pace as well, which is pretty close to being the best time. I need to remind myself what the best time yesterday was, but it was right at about that level.
Supersonic with a very strong run there.
Yeah, it's absolutely impressive. We had a 1930 SR race time, almost 1923 based on his splits. Very fantastic time. I believe he had a 20-something in the first race, if I'm not mistaken, so quite a big improvement.
Oh no, and
Ooh.
the Cole. He got the loaded boot. So I guess I'll take a moment to explain that. So there's about 3 different heights with that Potaboo at the end, and if you get the low one and you challenge it, you're going to get hit. There's not really any realistic way to be able to avoid that.
Alright, so for the week, LK will take 100 points. He actually wins overall. He got a 1947 yesterday, and while he doesn't beat Supersonics and Kaku's time today, they were both in yesterday's race as well and didn't beat that time, so that's what counts. First time. So congrats to LK. $20 Steam card, pretty good. Pretty good.
Let's see how our 2 new competitors are doing. So, Brother Main's in 7-3, heading into 7-4, and Kushas is in 7-2. So I feel like Kushas has kind of closed the gap a little bit. I think he's had a solid performance. And Cole finishing up after that unfortunate Potaboo death. So 2055 at the SRL race time, so congrats to him. Kind of talking about some of our other competitors that finished off screen. Kaku, who entered in yesterday, finished in second with a 1938, and Whack finished in fourth with a 2118. So those are our only 4 finishers so far, and everybody's kind of going right now.
Still about 30 people left to finish, and we probably won't cover all of them today, but we'll keep streams going for a little while, show how everyone else is doing. Alright, so Brother Main is finally in World 8. Fresh set of lives, I hope. Let's not see another game over. That's what we don't want to see. Alright, so we can probably expect these 2 players to get items in World 8. I'm curious as to which ones. Curious as to if they go for fire flowers, or if they just go for mushrooms. Kushas will hopefully escape World 7 as well. I'm not sure what his life count is, but I think he'll be okay. Oh, got lost in the maze. Okay. Oh, that actually didn't count. Okay. Kushas went too far there, so his maze pattern got messed up. He had to redo the maze. There we go. He's out. Don't die. Okay. All right. World 8. Good stuff. All right. Brother Main already in 8-3. He's starting to fly. Taking it slow, though, with the Hammer Brothers. I think he took a death to those earlier, so he's probably very paranoid of them now. Oh, I didn't even know you could do that. Okay, interesting. Usually players will just jump over all those blocks, but you can just slide right under if you're small. That's good to know. A lot of little intricacies about this game. A lot of routes you can take, different approaches to jumps.
Also, Brother Man is a pretty solid time heading into 8-4 here. It looks like
Yeah, he sure does.
if he can,
Especially
yeah.
for a new runner.
Oh, I jinxed him. All right,
All right.
show's
Thanks,
over,
Dark Man.
folks.
It's okay. He's got 2 lives. 8-4. He'll be fine.
Okay, that's good.
Might slow down a bit, but 11 people have finished so far. I see Ramses got a 24:40, which is pretty good. I think he just learned this game this week, so it's a very solid time. Sub 25 in a race, high pressure race at that. Okay, I think Brother Main's on his last life now, so now he needs to slow down a bit.
Just
Really
gotta
don't want
finish.
game over.
That's the important thing.
Yeah. So I think the big concern in this small Mario will be the Hammer Bro at the end. Seeing a lot of people die to that guy, and game over too, which you really don't want. That's the position Brother Mean is in too. Right. Water screen, not a problem. Here's the moment of truth.
I believe.
All right, he got him. Easy. Ooh, he went for it. He got it.
Clutch.
All right, good stuff.
Pretty respectable time, 25:47. I would imagine Ramses is probably in the same boat as Brother Main, and that he kind of learned the game this week. So kind of like the times that you would expect some of the really good runners who just started learning this game to get. So solid time. I definitely think if Brother Main is going to continue to enter in the future races, he's going to be a pretty strong competitor. So definitely somebody to look out for. Real quick, we are starting to bring up other streams, so we will be putting their names on the nameplates in the center. So on our bottom left, you have MT. I believe I got the numbers right, but if I didn't, forgive me. So MT. Oh, sorry, it's MT76907. So I'll fix that. But he's in 6-2, and then we have stream on the bottom who's in 7-1.
All right, Kuch is finishing at 2 pretty soon. We hope me as a gamer, not be the player, but do pretty well overall.
Something I want to cover up really quick, and actually, which I maybe this too. I think we're going 8-4. A lot of people have trouble with this issue just a moment ago. So there's a track that's consistent on actually making that row.
All right, done. Good. Kuch finished up. All right, our 4 featured players are done. We're still going to show off some more other players, different skill levels too. Watch them finish up. We'll get some more Mario to watch here.
I guess I'll try that again there with the 8-4 hammer bro strat. So the easy way to make it past the hammer bro in 8-4, especially if you're small, is when you come out of the pipe, out of the water section, just run straight off that pipe. And as soon as you hit the ground, do a completely full jump without any hesitation, and you should just land on the hammer bro and kill him. The only time that would fail is if you actually happen to jump on the very first frame that you land on the ground. You could die to that, but that's the easiest and most consistent way to make it past that hammer bro on 8-4 on the NES version. It's a little bit different on the All Stars version, which I think some of the other players may be playing on that version. In which that strat is you run off, and as soon as you hit the ground, you jump on the second pipe, and then you do a full jump over top of the hammer bro and land behind him. So that's actually probably the most helpful strat that I learned when I learned how to play this game, was how to deal with the 8-4 hammer brother.
All right, 16 players have finished up now. It's about half of our field. About 30 minutes into the race. I think most of I mentioned earlier, the Ultimate Decathlon, a lot of those players are in this. I think most of them have finished, so they're clearly taking this event pretty seriously. Most of them learning this game for the first time. Definitely players to look out for later in the season. All right, I think Infinite Mystery may have just got to World 8. Oh, maybe not. That was okay, that was an unintentional game over, I think, which is a good idea. You might as well just restart the world if you take a death in the first level. Oh, I see a World 101 on screen. That's not what you want to see.
What happened? I wasn't paying attention.
I didn't know if I was reading that correctly.
He was an 8. What happened? All right, we have to check the replay. Hold on.
So yeah, that's the concern with playing Mario 1 instead of the All-Stars version, because game overs are definitely an input code that is possible to mess up if you're just not thinking about it. And we happen to see it there.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. He unfortunately messed up the input code. So all the way back at 1-1. That's really, really unfortunate.
Yeah,
So I think
that's always unfortunate to see someone do that. And pretty much, I feel that you can pretty much ask any racer of this game in the past, and they've probably done it in a race at least once before. So it's super frustrating, but that unfortunately it happens sometimes.
And I guess would warps be allowed to get back to where you were since you already did the first World 7?
Historically, yes, that is
Okay.
allowed. Like if you've already played through a world, you're allowed to warp past that.
Okay, that's good. He seems to know that, so that's a good sign.
Glad to hear it. Any so I don't know, Buddy, you've kind of seen some of our competitors finish. Any surprises or things that you kind of like seen out of the first race? You're like, okay, yeah, I expect him to be a really good competitor. Or...
um, it's hard to say. I definitely expected some of our mystery tournament players to go into this and take it pretty seriously, as well as the decathlon players, and they seem to be doing pretty well. So, but I think for the most part, you never really know how well people are going to learn speedruns, how quickly and how efficiently, until you actually see them try it out. So this is kind of a good sample size for what to expect in future races. Infinite Mystery getting back to where he was, slowly but surely.
Looks good.
I mean, he's pretty much back there already. He's taking the 4-2 warp, so that's
Yeah,
actually not that bad overall. A few minutes, which isn't good, but
unfortunately, Countdown wasn't able to successfully beat 8-4, so game over and has to start at 8-1.
It's a struggle. It's a hard world. All right, he found the big mushroom, so that's good. I think he'll clear this pretty quickly. MT is getting into 6-4, 2 lives. Should be enough to get to World 7. And again, you can tell these players didn't put too much time into practice, but they're actually doing quite well overall, considering that, I'd say. These are getting to the hard worlds of the game. I think MT is getting through this world pretty quickly, but we mentioned earlier 5, 7, and an 8 seem to be the most popular worlds in terms of thinking they're really hard among our new players. So they'll definitely slow people down a bit, but they're getting through them.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, like seeing a runner like MT. MT early big into Yoshi's Island. So it's kind of interesting to see them kind of cross over into like different games. And just trying to see like just play through it, see how fast or how good you can perform. It's interesting. He has actually a splits on his stream, so he's technically done a run before. May have been maybe like a blind run, but yeah, it's kind of cool to see them like play through the games again and just like kind of race and have fun and see where you go with it.
All right, fireworks. That's I see some fireworks. That's not necessarily a bad thing when you're a slow runner, but that does slow you down a bit. Important to remember when you're really good at this game. I was kind of hoping we'd see those. I love the fireworks. They're slow, but they're cool.
So, how the fireworks work on this game is when you touch the flagpole, if the last digit on the timer is a 1, 3, or a 6, you will get respectively that many fireworks. So in a speed run, 1 firework does not cost you any time. That's perfectly fine. There's no penalty for that. 3 is going to cost you, I believe, about a half a second, maybe a second, and 6 fireworks is going to cost you about 2 to 2.5 seconds. So that's something, especially for the better players, they definitely try to avoid, as that can make the difference between a good run or a PB pace run or one that falls just a few seconds behind.
All right, I like this. So, Infamous Mysteries back to 8. We got a pretty solid race between 3 of these guys here. All of them in World 8, and anything can happen. So, I'll be curious to see who finishes first.
I think we alluded to this earlier, but we're seeing All-Stars, and that is an acceptable alternative. There are a few differences in that game from the original NES version. It is actually a bit slower, mainly because of the transition screens between stages, I think. But there are some benefits, mostly for new players. You get 5 lives instead of 3 per continue. If you game over, you start the world over, but you don't have to input the code, which is nice, so there aren't any mistakes in that regard, and you don't get sent back to the beginning of the game.
The biggest portion of the time difference between the 2 versions is at the end of each castle level. On the NES version, the timer just stops there and it goes on to the next level. With the All-Stars version, you have to wait for the timer to go down to 0 and count up the score and so forth, like it does in the rest of the level. So that's really where the huge portion of the time difference comes in mind. That's slower.
Now, can you, just curiosity, can you do the flagpole glitch on All-Stars or nah?
Let's see. I'm trying to think here because I'm not as well versed with the All-Stars version. I'm trying to. It's either the bullet. One of them will soft lock the game. I feel like the bullet bill glitch will actually soft lock the game, and the flagpole glitch may not. Is it possible? I'm trying to think. It does work differently. Okay, Supersonic's correcting me here. So the flagpole glitch will work on the All-Stars, but the bullet bill glitch will soft lock. And I'm pretty sure the reason for that is in that version it expects Mario to get to the castle before it will count down the timer, and since he actually never touches the castle, the countdown will never start. So it'll just soft lock there, and he'll just keep walking in place indefinitely.
Alright, countdown finishes up, taking 21st overall. A little more than half our players have finished. Yeah, I mentioned earlier, we can expect to see a pretty wide variety in skill in these races, and we're definitely seeing that. Some of our top players on the leaderboard join the race, and we're seeing some people playing the game for the first time in like a decade. So, welcome to all skill levels. I guess on that note, if you want to join other seasons' races, please feel free to do so, whether you want to practice or not. Again, we got all skill levels in this thing. It's wide open to anyone who wants to join. You might not even get last as long as you finish the race, because we're bound to have a few forfeits every race, so get some easy points there.
So how long this is gonna be running? We're gonna, kind of play a few more racers, see how they're doing, finish up, and then we will kind of wrap it up from there. And yeah, have a reveal at the end of the stream. Which, of course, stay tuned.
Alright, MT takes a death in 6-4. Still 2 lives, though. That's a good sign. Mystery just finished up. I'm not sure if he was on his last life or not, but that's good. He got through World 8 pretty quickly. Almost as quickly as it took him to get back to it after the game over, so that's good. Glad it wasn't a big struggle.
So yeah, Kevin has been having a little bit of a struggle in World 8 so far. Things not going his way. It happens.
It's a hard game, and you know it's true, and even our commentator Rupert says that the game is hard. Has to be hard.
It's I feel like it's a more difficult game than people initially realize, especially when you watch a lot of the top players like Darby and Cosmic and Supersonic and all these upper echelon runners of this game. But it is a difficult game, and what you see out of those runners is the product of or hundreds of hours, even maybe potentially thousands of hours of attempts at this game. So it does take a lot of time to get to a high level on this game. So it's definitely not easy, and and I feel like some players realize that once they start running this game on how difficult it really is. It's not as difficult as Lost Levels. That's kind of on its own level, but I feel it's a pretty difficult speed game to become pretty good at.
Yeah, it's difficult, but it's accessible in a way, it seems. It's just very conceptually easy to understand what you're supposed to do, and there really isn't a whole lot to memorize, just mostly jump timing and stuff. It's just very hard to execute. That's kind of why we liked opening the season with it.
Yeah, and also for a game like this, it's really a lot more execution based than it is relying on glitches and tricks and so forth. I mean, obviously this game does have some glitches and tricks, but for especially people getting started with it, it's really all about learning the levels and just clean execution. Like there's not a lot of zips and and a bunch of other glitches that you have to learn for this game.
Small Fire Mario, that's about it. Alright, we're seeing the 1-up strats here. Always a good bet in World 8 especially.
So I see that Kevio did went down the pipe in 8-2. That's a strat I see some newer players use, and there's 3 Koopas right before that pit, and if you go down the pipe and go through it, it'll actually despawn all of them. It makes that section considerably easier, even though that it does waste several seconds of time. But that's one of those points in 8-2 where a lot of new players have trouble with. So some opt to try to get them cleared out just so that they can make it through the rest of the stage.
What do you think the hardest stage in World 8 is for a new player?
8-3.
Okay. Hammer
If
Bros.
you,
Yeah.
if you don't have have fire, I would say 8-3.
Yeah, that's understandable. That's probably what my experience was too, now that I think about it a bit more.
All right. So as you can see on stream, we do have kind of we're kind of wrapping things up here. We have Faster Supersonic on the left, Kevio 42 on the top right, MT of course on the bottom left, and Badap on the bottom right. So after most of these guys wrap up, we're probably going to be wrapping up the stream, and then once we do that, we will have a reveal for you guys. So yeah, let's take a look and see how our final competitors do. As we see Badap finishing there, so well done. At 24th place, 44.36. Nothing wrong with that. I know it's better than anything I could put, that's for sure.
Same. Game's hard. Alright. Oh, MT, no.
Classic.
Oh. Oh no. It's all happening so fast. Yeah, these are the Hammer Bros we know and love in 8-3. Oh, Supersonic was very patient with them and then fell right into the Koopa. It's not what you want to see.
So yeah, overall, what do you think of our competitors? How do you think some of them have fared? Obviously, we had our heavyweights like Supersonic and Kaku, of course, but overall, how do you think people did for learning the game in a week?
I've been pretty impressed, honestly. Looks like some of these guys have really done their homework on trying to learn the levels and what kind of stress to go throughout the game. So to have times like that in the span of a week, I mean, obviously I don't know how much time they've spent, but just in general over the span of a week, I feel like getting anything below like a mid-20s is actually a pretty good time for that short of a time span to learn the game.
Solid. Now, if I'm in the chat watching, I'm thinking I want to get involved with Super Mario Brothers. I want to kind of learn maybe Warpless or any percent. What would be the best way to kind of like start learning the game?
Pretty much my recommendations for that is there are several tutorial videos for both any percent and Warpless. I know both Darby and Cosmic have an any percent tutorial. Cosmic and I have a Warpless tutorial. I don't know that much about Cosmic's Warpless tutorials. I don't think I've really managed to watch it. The one that I have, honestly, is kind of it's sort of outdated. It's like 4 years old, but I guess it's still good enough for people to learn the basics of the game. But I kind of went through, sort of more beginner friendly strats. Like I didn't go over like, optimal strats for a lot of levels and so forth. I feel like a lot of people, try to work up to that. But if you want to get involved, watching those tutorials are a good option. We also have a 2D Mario Discord server where a lot of us hang out, and people are free to come in there and ask us questions about strats and just overall mechanics and basics of the game. And then there's also the forums on speedrun.com. So we try to keep our eyes on that and answer any questions that people have. So we're always excited to have new people to learn SMB1 and we try to help them out the best we can.
And do you have a link to that? You can actually give me a link to it, and I can post it in chat.
For the
Discord? Yeah, I can do the speedrun. Yeah.
Okay, let me find that real quick.
Is your Discord just for Mario 1, or is it all the
This Discord actually covers most of the classic 2D Mario games. So it covers SMB 1, Lost Levels 2, 3, Mario Land 1 and 2, and I think there's a few others in there as well.
That's good. It's a lot of variety, so definitely check that out. I assume it's pretty big too. I know the Mario community is very intertwined.
Yeah, it's a pretty large server. But most of the people in there are pretty cool to work with and willing to answer questions. So, but that's the Discord server is probably the best resource to get quicker answers to your questions.
Yep. So I put a couple links in chat. If you are interested in getting involved with this game, you want to kind of learn it on your own, feel free. Of course, I'm going to link Season 2 again. You know, this is, of course, a week 1 of Season 2. So this is a 9-week-long regular season, 2-week-long playoff season. We're going to be having a new game every week, and you get points based on how you finish each week. And then we'll have the top 16 after the end of 9 weeks. Duke it out for first place, where you can win some cool prizes and more. So just because you missed the first week does not mean you are out of it. You're still definitely eligible to enter and potentially win. So I'm going to put a link in chat for you guys to check that out.
Yes, please join if you like what we're doing. You can join the races even if you don't feel like practicing or if you want to go for gold or anything in between. As Darkman said, if you missed this one, it's no big deal. We actually drop your 2 worst scores in the season, so you can technically even miss the first 2 races and not really be punished for it. So, yeah, don't sweat it. You want to get in, hop in the race next week. Practice, don't practice, up to you. So let's make these races as big and successful as we can. And if you do want to join, you can go to speedrunslive.com, and we have a Discord icon on the top of our page. You can click that, join our server, and we can pretty much help you with anything you need. Whether it's using SRL or figuring out how to learn the games, anything in that regard, we'll be happy to help out.
That's a very interesting question in chat. What is next week's race? Well, if you stay tuned, because in the next few minutes we should be showing that off. So just give us a moment.
Is it time? Time for the reveal?
Well, before we do that, I just want to take a minute to say thank you everyone so far for watching week 1. It's been exciting. We've had some good races. We had a lot of great competitors over the 2 weeks. Over the 2 races, we had about 50 competitors. That's awesome. Good start. But we definitely want to see more. So I also want to thank Rupert for giving us commentary. Really appreciate it, man. It was very helpful.
Thank you.
And yeah, so if you guys are interested in, maybe speedrunning Mario yourself, definitely check out speedrun.com for more resources, or you can also join the 2D Mario Discord. But yeah, without further ado, this wraps up week 1. That means that it's time for the reveal of week 2's game. So
Game 2.
Game 2. So without further ado, let's play the video.
Alright, Game 2 is a complete opposite of Mario 1. Complete style difference, complete everything difference. We got Quake 2, and I think this will be a good test to see what people are really in it to win this whole season, because there's not really much overlap here with Mario 1, but it's a hard game to learn, I would say, but it's also probably easier in regards to just not dying and keeping up with what you know. So yeah, I expect to see some good gameplay here. This is a very fast game. A lot of jumping around, a lot of moving fast, a lot of aiming and shooting quickly. So I'm excited to see how people approach this. It's also a good throwback too, because Quake is where we all began, right?
Quick. Respect your elders, as they say.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to see how people do in this race. It's like Boney said, like obviously we started off with kind of like, Super Mario Brothers, keep it kind of simple. Everybody knows the game. It's a platformer, people can relate. But now we want to kind of see how good of a speedrunner are you really? Like, are you going to be able to adapt to a different game? I mean, most of us don't really speedrun, for the people that enter these races, most of us don't speedrun FPS games. So I'd be really curious to see how that translates to speedrunning ability. It's going to be exciting. I'm curious to see how people do. So yeah, please join us next Sunday, 2 p.m. Well, we'll probably be starting again at 1:30 p.m. Eastern for a little bit of pre-show, preview the events to come. I'm looking forward to it. It should be really exciting. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for week 1. Boney, any closing thoughts?
That's pretty much it. I do want to give a shout out to Blasphemous Roar for making all our reveal trailers. I think they're really cool. I like the openings and the outros especially. He does a good job with them. So thanks for those, and look forward to the future trailers. Thanks to everyone who joined this race, and thanks to everyone who watched. Hopefully you will get in on future weeks as well. Hopefully you'll join the Quake 2 races. Thanks to Rupert as well for commentating and especially helping out with a lot of the new runners. He was around in our Discord quite a bit to help out with questions and give us a tutorial and stuff. So that's good. You're representing your community well, which probably doesn't need it because it's already really well represented. Good community. Good stuff.
I just wanted to say thanks for having me, and hopefully I'll be able to join in on some of these additional seasons races. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to make for Quake 2 since I've got some things going on. But hopefully I'll be able to join in on some of these others that I'm excited to see seasons come back. But
Sounds good. Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Yeah. But I think that's all I had. But thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Quake 2 next week. I'm excited. Only the second week of 9 weeks before a top 16, so we got a lot of games to play.
All right, well, with that in mind, thank you very much, Boney and Rupert. We really appreciate it. Just kind of going to wrap the stream up real quick, a couple of announcements. Of course, if you like what you saw, you have a speedrunning event, not necessarily similar to Season 2, but, you have some sort of speedrunning event going on and you wanted to showcase it on our channel. We have an email address where you can certainly message us. It is hotfix@gamesdonequick.com. So if you can just message us with the details of your event and what you would like to see out of us, we'll be happy to talk about it more with you. And also volunteer selections for Summer Games Done Quick. It's full in force. So they'll be out on it's going to be the 31st. So look out for that. I know people have been asking when they're going to be selected for volunteering. So stick around. Also, the games list will be coming out April 4th. So I know a lot of people are excited about that. So yeah, it's going to be really fun. So yeah, stick around for those. We will see you next week, Sunday, March 31st at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. But for now, let's do a raid. So we are going to raid Speed Gaming 3. They're doing a Super Meat Boy relay race. So it's pretty neat. So I definitely think you guys should check them out, watch it, see how it's going, say hi. And yeah, that's going to do it for us. Thank you very much for watching. I am Darkman78, and this was SpeedRunsLive presents Seasons 2, Week 1.